Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Chewy, good evening, sir.
Hello. Welcome to Monday.
Welcome to Monday Fun Day.
Welcome to Chili's.
Welcome to Chile.
What a weekend.
Yeah, it's been interesting, eh? We haven't seen you since Thursday, folks. Welcome back to everyone, and thanks for having been with us again. There was this little small news story on Thursday about like the Prime Minister resigning. That sort of, we didn't talk too much about it, but we thought we'd cover that off, and then we're now starting this year doing Monday to Thursday. So Friday we were just kind of chilling, watching what was happening from the sideline, and then having a look over the weekend. I was very strongly of the opinion that Kieran McNulty should be the guy. I also agreed with what Chewy said and others that he's unlikely to be the guy, and I know that's how it was kind of work, but I still was of the opinion that would be a really, really good choice, simply because he's provincial. That would help in this market at the moment. Yada 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 yada. Christopher Hipkins, uncontested, new Prime Minister.
I have so many thoughts about this.
Oh, go on, then fought away.
So, like last time there was any sort of contest for leadership with Labour, it was like they went like a presidential primary sort of thing, and it was like the Battle of the Davids, and it was just an embarrassing shit show. And then obviously you've got National with their struggles with leadership, shall we say, over the space of months and months and months.
Yeah.
That's what I was afraid of this time around. Obviously, with Jacinda going, it was a massive shock to everyone. And I was like, oh my God, is anybody ready for this?
Yeah.
And I just didn't want it to be a bloodbath of people ripping into each other.
Yeah.
For them to just turn around on a dime and go, yep, Chris Hipkins, we're all pulling in the same direction. Let's go. What a strong showing for the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, you're right. I mean, because someone needed to get a 75% majority, and if they got that, then they could nominate them, and then if they didn't, they'd go to the members. I'm glad it didn't go to the members. I would really like to know if he was elected uncontested. That doesn't necessarily mean there still wasn't a conversation in cabinet. Like, what are we going to do, guys? Here's an idea. Like, I wonder if there was any. I imagine there wasn't. But I wonder if there was any, okay, guys, let's just all take a step back and have a think what we're going to do. I imagine that wasn't the case, but I would like to have thought that they'd gone through a few things.
Yeah, or I think it's just a show of like, right, we've got to get this behind us because they're going to hit us with everything now that Jacinda's gone. There's going to be reactions like we had last week of like, oh God, how do you come back from this?
Yeah.
In the run up to an election. I think this gives him, straight away, he's going to have 6 or 7 months as Prime Minister. It's not like we had last time of like a month out from the election, I'm out. Or like what we had with John Key when he just went, oh, okay, this looks unwinnable and I can't do it, so I'm out. Yeah. I found it really interesting, actually. I saw someone do a tweet of going like, oh, can anybody think of a man saying that they just don't have it in them to continue?
Yes.
And in the replies, somebody put up what John Key said when he resigned. And he even used the phrase, I don't have anything left in the tank.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a thing. I think the discussion over the weekend over toxicity and misogyny in our the political commentary has been God. Some of the media outlets and some of the political commentators have shown their entire ass over the weekend.
Whilst I show you a clip, do you want to bring up Russell Brown's Twitter? Because I just kind of caught it as I was coming in, and I believe he was saying that there was a particular commentator who was saying basically Jacinda brought it on herself. Like,
yes, I did.
She divided us. Bring up Russell Brown's Twitter so we can have a look at that. And while you're doing that, Jimmy Carr's in New Zealand at the moment, and he was on. You'll enjoy this if you haven't seen it. He was on The Project tonight, and he'd actually finished his piece. And The Project went to a bit talking about the egg shortage, and Jimmy Carr actually became quite helpful for a second to help New Zealand finish the egg shortage. Have a listen.
A serious egg shortage in New Zealand.
Oh,
but if you...
I think I've got the solution. I'm serious. I think I've got the solution. Oh, Christopher Luxon. We crack his head open. Plenty to go. He's basically Christopher Luxon is New Zealand's Humpty Dumpty. That's the way I see it.
We will take a look.
We don't need him till November. He'll grow back.
We will take a look at some other proposed solutions after the break.
We might enjoy that one in particular there, Chewy. So I thought I'd put that out there for you. Did you find? You got the thing? Do you want to bring it up?
I'm just trying to search it. When's it from?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, also interesting to watch over the weekend the number of people who were saying I've had to clear out my Facebook feed or whatever from all the misogynistic comments that are going on, and I was a bit like, hang on, I was a little bit like, hang on, what? Why is it taking you this long? Why is it taking you this long to actually figure this out? Because these people didn't just go, surprise, over the weekend, I'm going to say some shitty things about Jacinda. It's like they've been saying it online and, not even in the dark corners of the internet, but forever and ever. Amen. And I was both interested as the large number of people who said it, and also the large number of people who had to do it over the weekend, where it was like, this is not a new phenomenon. You can't find it. I'm sorry, I've steered you incorrectly. He was talking about the mainstream media's response over the weekend, and I think he included, maybe it was Rachel Smalley, something from Rachel Smalley in there, but I don't want to get that wrong, so we won't quote that. Anyway, so what do you think? The egg shortage can be solved by cracking open Christopher Luxon's head. Will that get me cancelled on Twitter by saying that, like happened with you?
I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to risk it again. Yes. I also liked the initial press stand up with Chris Hipkins in his hut uniform of his speed dealer sunnies and hat. And then the next appearance we saw of Luxon, he was like, I've also got sunglasses, guys. I'm cool sunglasses man too. But yeah, that stand up that Luxon did. I mean, traditionally, when there's been a change in leadership, everybody just goes, welcome aboard, congrats on the change of leadership. It's just game on. Generally a welcome, and then straight away Luxon was into the but nothing's going to change. Labour's still bad at everything. We're going to his message.
We're going to get to that pretty much straight away. So we'll have a look at that. Just quickly though, from Justine. Justine says, actually, a lot of my friends only started posting things over the weekend, must have only gotten the ball since Jacinda resigned. Okay, look, fair enough. Maybe so. Maybe there's people out there who have actually got on board.
There has been this has emboldened some people as well.
Maybe.
Like sometimes this is the stuff that they've been saying behind the curtain, and now they've they're claiming victory, and then they're saying these things on main.
Yeah, we took you down. We got look, we got you.
Mm.
All right,
but I had a pretty interesting conversation about this because I mean we tend to focus a lot on that, because I mean that's certainly a lot of what I see on Twitter and some of the other websites that I look at, as you see that kind of language constantly. And I was talking to someone who was just like, you guys always talk about that, and it sort of platforms those guys. You almost spreading their message a little bit, even though you're saying it's bad and that sort of thing. How about we focus on the positives? Because I mean, this is the thing, and I kind of agree here, is that we kind of run their messaging for them, even if we're taking the piss out of it. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
No, I'm completely not on board with that. I mean, like, let's use an extreme example. Can you imagine if like the world just shut up about Hitler because they didn't want anyone else to know? No, it's bullshit. Let's call it out. But what we don't do is we don't only focus on that. You know, we call out the goods and we call out the bads. In fact, tonight, one of the things we're going to do is I'm going to do a little challenge because of Mr. Luxon's continual comments about Labor's achieved nothing, is we're going to have a look at some of the things Labor has achieved.
Yeah.
And we're going to play a game, Chewy, me and you are going to help me randomly pick some spots on a website to see if we can just read out some of the things that they have achieved. Now, when I say they have achieved, what I'm saying is policies they have implemented from their own source, right? So there are going to be some people that go, well, of course it says that it's a Labor website, but I'm talking about policies they've implemented. Remember, the theory of the black swan, yeah? Theory of the black swan says this: all you need to do to disprove the statement there are only white swans is to find one black swan, and that disproves the statement. For Christopher Luxon to say they've achieved nothing, if we can demonstrate one achievement, and I would hesitate a bit that we can demonstrate more than that, but if I can demonstrate one, then we have debunked. I was going to say disproved and debunked in the same word. We've debunked that statement. We've debunked it. That's a new word for us. We should jot that down. From now on, it's debunked. So we are going to look at that tonight, and we are going to have a look at both, you know, some pros and cons, some ups and downs, some lefts and rights, some authoritarians and libertarians. That's the difference between me and Chewy a little bit, but we won't tell you which is which. So let's get into it, eh? Because you know, a friend of the show, my friend and yours, Ryan Bridge, makes an appearance tonight, who we haven't seen at all this year. This is the conversation with Chris Hipkins. Getting that right. I'm gonna do that for such a long time because in my head I go Chris, and then what wants to come out is Luxon. It's just the Chris Luxon, you know, it's that thing. So I'm gonna be going Chris Hipkins. And I've included the question to start off with because I'm only going to play you a few seconds, then I'm going to stop it. But this is Christopher Luxon asking the question from Ryan Bridge about Christopher Hipkins' credentials when it comes to the economy.
And the number one thing that you want to tackle is the economy. That's been the clear message from you yesterday. What economic credentials do you have?
Look, we have, I think, a proud economic track record as a government.
You personally?
Okay, so I'm stopping this, yeah? Because what we're going to do is hold this mainstream media bullshit to account. So Ryan Bridge wants to know Chris Hipkins' personal experience in the area of economics and the economy. So if Mr. Luxon comes on board and he doesn't go, well, what's your personal experience when it comes to greenhouse gases? What's your personal experience when it comes to social welfare? You know, what's your personal experience? If you don't ask the same thing of the other parts, and look, we already know that basically Ryan Bridge is not hiding his colors anymore. We've pointed this out numerous times before. But if he asks, and look, I'm actually okay with him asking the soon-to-be Prime Minister to do that, as long as he asks all the other people, the would-be leaders, the same question. You know,
that sounds like consistency.
Mr. Peters, if you're going to talk about the economy, what is your experience in running a business? Because that's what he's asking here. And if he doesn't ask the others, well, we already know. It's all shell game, isn't it? But anyway, look, I'll unless you want to jump in right now, Chewy, I'll keep playing because we only gave it about 10 seconds.
No, punch it.
All right, here we go.
Grant Robertson is going to be our Minister of Finance. I'm here to
answer.
lead the government. I think if you look at the work that I have done as a minister, I can grip up a policy brief quite quickly when I need to. But Grant's going to continue to lead our economic strategy.
There'll be people at home though who say, and these are centrist voters who might be looking at Chris Luxon because he's run an airline or whatever, looking at these guys who've got business experience and saying, we are going into economic headwinds. What have you ever done with business?
So let's just also get this clear. When we hear politicians and when we hear public talking about business experience, we're not talking about CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, because that's not the business that the general population are interested in. The general population are interested in business where it's the corner shop and it's the car yard and it's the I run my own business. An elitist top 1% earner who's never had, and this is not a criticism, it's fine for you to earn lots of money, I don't care, but has never had to worry about a personal budget for your own business in your life is not what we're talking about. So the middle New Zealander, the swing voter, is not looking to Mr. Luxon and going, oh gosh, he's run a business. He hasn't run a business.
No,
he's been the CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
Middle management for Unilever, CEO for Air New Zealand. He inherited in Air New Zealand doing very, very well, having no major challenges. And his sole achievement while he was at the helm was not completely fucking it up. There was no innovation. There was no great leap forwards. In fact, the general feeling that I've seen is that the staff weren't happy and glad that he was gone. So
one of the greatest comments on this show from a punter, and if you're out there, identify yourself immediately, was, I wonder who the workers of Air New Zealand will be voting for. The ones who worked under Mr. Luxon, who will they be voting for? That would be
an amazing question out there. You know, I mean, I've only got anecdotal stories and that sort of thing, but there's nothing real good there.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going with this conversation. So in other words, and remember, I'll say this again, you'll probably get sick of me saying this year, being a business person is not a good credential to being a politician. No. A business person, their primary objective is to drive a profit for themselves or their shareholders. That's not how local or central government works. Local and central government if it was only about profit, that's the only criteria about running a business. That's that. And in fact, if you run a Fortune 500 business, you legally must try and maximize profits for your investors. You must. And if you don't, you can be held legally accountable as well. What would be a better CEO, in my opinion, if you're going to put it on your CV to be a politician? And remember, I'm not saying you can't be a good politician if you're a business person. What I'm saying is to use I was a business person as a reason you'd be a good politician is horseshit. What would be better is like the CEO of a NGO, you know, a CEO of a tier fund, where it's not profit driven, but there are still budgets, there is still staff, you are still trying to drive a product, but you're not worrying about returning, you know, a profit to your shareholders. That would actually be better on a criteria. But then again, you'd be accused of not being a business person. Sorry, Terry.
I'd find it more impressive if someone, you know, if they wanted to put forward their credentials of a CEO of a medium to large size company, it would be, I ran this company and look at how well my staff are doing.
Yeah, true.
How good their wages are, how happy they are to work for this company. You know, rather than it just be, I'm Johnny Businessman, look at me do my business. I'm good for government, because it's exactly the same. Where are the P&Ls? Where are the profit and loss statements, please? I need to know where they are for the government.
And remember, if you were going to run a country like you run a business, all of those things that cost, like health, I'm not saying that National's going to do this, but if you were going to run it like a business, healthcare, fire department, libraries, all those things that don't return a profit would all disappear. That would be how you run a company.
Yeah,
not
schools
how you run a country.
Profit. Kids are a very good workforce. They've got the little hands that can go into the machines.
Yeah,
stuff like that. So that's how we can turn this country around and turn a profit.
All right, economic credentials, please, Mr. Hipkins.
Well, I think the thing that New Zealand, what I think I do bring is an understanding of the day-to-day lives of New
Terrible
Zealand families
answer.
and the sort of pressure that they'll be facing, and the sort
Because
of things
he
that they're
doesn't
going to be
understand.
concerned
He's on
about.
he's on a very good wicket.
Mortgage interest rates. They're going to be concerned about how much it costs to buy stuff at the supermarket. They'll be concerned about their power bill and their petrol bill. Those are things that I understand. I understand what the issues are that are driving New Zealanders, and I want to make sure that my government.
It's hard, because I think Ryan Bridge shows his colours all the time, but I also know what would be a good question. Sorry, what was your salary, Mr. Hipkins? How can you understand what it's like to be worried about a power bill when you're on $400,000 a year? What was it again? So although I'm being a bit critical of Mr. Bridge, he's also missing tricks here if you were trying to do this as an actual interview as well.
Is absolutely focused on those core bread and butter issues that are important to New Zealanders.
Which is politics, right? You understand politics and you've been in it for a very long time. Do you see yourself as a career politician?
Well, this is a political role. By definition, anyone who puts their hand up to be a member of Parliament is choosing politics as a career.
Good answer.
That includes Christopher Luxon and includes everyone who's in Parliament. By definition, if we put our hands up, we're choosing to enter a career in politics.
But others have done stuff before, right? This has been a career for you from the get-go.
Look,
and if we start to put out the criteria of what people have done before, should we revisit Sam Uffindale? Because he's done some stuff before as well, hasn't he?
But I mean,
sorry, let's just finish this. There's only about 10 seconds to go.
Public service for my whole life. That is absolutely correct. And that is going to stay that way. I want to make New Zealand a better place. I want to leave New Zealand in better shape than I found it.
So there you go. And we talked over him a little bit there. I apologize. He said that I've been in public service my whole life. In other words, I've been in public service my whole life. That's what I'm experiencing, and I'm continuing to run in public service. Sorry, Cheery, I cut you off there.
This whole thing of you can't possibly, a career politician bad, guy that's done something else and decide to have a go at politics good is just crap. I never liked it. They used to bash Jacinda on it, the only job she ever had was in a fish and chip shop. And suddenly the fact that someone that wants to be Prime Minister has only been in the job for a year is a good thing. God, no.
I mean, what other role of and I was going to say of such importance, there may not be a role as important as Prime Minister, but what other role in this country or the Western world that's one of the most important jobs in the country could you get with no experience, flouting a CV that gives you no experience, and have people believe that that's the best outcome as opposed to someone who's been working in that field for 20 years? Just
the skill sets are completely different. Just because someone's a good cop is not going to make them a good Minister of Justice. It's the things don't go hand in hand. There's a reason why most of the successful politicians that we've got have a law background. Because they are lawmakers. So yeah, I hate that parallel that they're trying to draw, is that a professional politician bad, amateur politician good.
Yeah, I think that's what Carl's just said in the chat. Speaking of the chat, though, you've been
almost bang on.
you've been marking a few there. Before we go on to the next clip, which is talking about reprioritisation of Labor policies, is there anything you want to throw out there so we don't get too far behind?
Yeah, we've got some comments from the live chat here. From Ava, Luxon has a stunningly little political nous and leadership ability. The job he wants is PM. He needs to be able to play a game that appeals beyond his base. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that's got the big question mark at the moment is he growing Nationals voting public in any sort of major way? It's coming up, but is that dissatisfaction with Labor or is it satisfaction with him?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. John T commenting on the interview.
Sorry,
sort of
John T.
nearly drove my fist through my own face. Yeah, that's my feeling. Peter here. The country is not a business. I hate that.
Yep.
Yeah. And Lars, if Luxon had stayed with Air New Zealand a couple more years and then kept them going through COVID, then he might have something to shout about. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. One more here for you from Lars as well. Lars says if Hipkins wanted to talk about his experiences with the economy, he could talk about his work as education minister and putting however many people in trade. So there you go. All right, let's go on to the next clip. I'm sorry, was it John T? Please don't put your fist through your face when you're watching us, John T. Part of the conversation. Now, I actually think that this is possibly a mistake by Labor, starting to talk about what they're going to change, because all they're doing is giving fodder to the opposition about, see, we were right, they were wrong.
I think it's real concerns about this.
So let's just have a look. So he's being asked about what they're going to prioritize, if anything, between now and the election.
Yes, there will be some reprioritisation. I think one of the things that our government has recognised is that the public feel that we're doing too much too fast.
Yeah.
And I think we do need to consolidate.
Like what?
A little bit. And
So that was mismanaged.
no, not necessarily. I think.
Well, whose fault was that?
Well, I think, again, a year ago, 2 years ago,
terrible.
5 years ago, we were in a very different position to the one we're in now.
Yeah, but the world changes quickly. Obviously, you didn't change quick enough.
And well, maybe, but right now we need to refocus on those core issues that New Zealanders want to see us.
We'll talk about some of those in a
So there you go. I mean, I honestly, I think, I get there's two things. Like, and we've said this before, a U-turn is sometimes a good thing because it means you're now going in the right direction. But like too many things too quickly, like what? I mean, like what?
They've built too many houses.
I mean, people are going to go back to, and I'm going to bang on about this year. People are going to go back to 3 waters being passed too quickly. Fine, like the actual speed of the legislation and the way it was communicated, pretty poor. I agree with all of that, but I'm going to keep asking you about Gore. So we scrap 3 waters. So Gore needs to find $50,000 per ratepayer over the next 10 years, $5,000 per year to get their structures up to being safe. What happens there? It's going to be centralized. If not 3 waters, then what? Like I'm just like, what? What is all these things that we're moving too quickly on? I think it's weak. I think it's weak, and I think it echoes all of the things that National's been saying, and I don't think that Christopher Hipkins is doing himself any favors.
Yeah, I think saying that they're going to scrap some stuff and refocus and that sort of thing without actually having that, like, this is what we've scrapped and why, ready to go. Like, I wouldn't have mentioned that at this point at all until you'd actually decided and could defend it. At the moment, that opens up every potential policy thing that they've spoken about has a great big question mark and an axe over top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the other thing is, for a long time, Chewy, you and I both have been talking about if Labor was to go to their roots, like we've talked about, if National throws in the face of Labor, all the CEOs hate you. That's what the research shows. And Labor doesn't pick up that ball and run with it by going, that's fine. You guys can have the CEOs. We'll have the workers. Right? That's absolutely where Labor should be. If they don't do that, then they're also caught in this middle ground of they're trying to be all things to all people. And historically speaking, that's not who they are. They are, like it or not, they are the party of the trade unions. They are the party of the worker. They are the party of, of the low income. They are the party of the beneficiary. You know what that means? They are the party of the fucking majority of the country. Right? So if National starts to talk about the CEOs, and if National starts to talk about, they're not on Labor's side, accept it, own it. And there's a point here where I see in Chris Hipkins some messaging that could really, really, really work. Let's play this thing when Ryan Bridge is asking him about the tax system and asking them about is the tax system fair. It's a interesting approach by Ryan Bridge, because he doesn't get him to can you just rule in or rule out? But don't play that game. But he basically asks him, is the tax system fair? And Chris Hipkins nails it. And this is the messaging that Labor needs to use.
I think we should always look at how we can make the tax system fairer. I think overall, there are some New Zealanders who perhaps aren't contributing their fair share.
Who are they?
Well, look, I think let's start. Okay, you've asked about value, so I'll start right at the core value.
This is great.
If you work hard, you should be able to get ahead. There are people now working really, really hard. Some of them might be working multiple jobs, and they're not feeling that they can get ahead. They are contributing enormously to New Zealand and to our prosperity, but they are feeling that they're not able to get ahead. We need a tax system that recognises that, that actually makes sure that those who are really striving, who are putting in the hard yards, actually, feel the reward for that. It's not just about tax, though. It's also about incomes. Tax ultimately is calculated based on income.
But one's got to pay for the other, right?
Well, yes, but yeah,
This is
absolutely.
great.
I'll give you a practical, real world example that I've dealt with over the last 5.5 years. People have said to me, I'm a teacher or I'm a nurse. I could go to Australia and I could, get a better salary in Australia. They pay overall higher rates of tax in Australia. Those taxes then pay the salaries of those teachers and those nurses. We can't divorce those issues. We need to increase incomes.
Yeah.
Tax is only one part of that conversation.
Yeah, but fundamentally, you believe the tax system is unfair and is weighted against salary and
No.
wages.
That's not what he said.
God,
He
wasn't even in the same room.
Always look at how we can make the tax
All
system.
right.
So basically, Ryan Bridge just listened to that whole thing and went, so fundamentally, you believe that black is white and wet is dry. That's what you're saying. It's like, okay, so let's forget Ryan Bridge's vacuous comment at the end there. But this idea, and this is what happened, actually, not to hark on about Three Waters, all the mayors around the country, they didn't give the honest position on it. They didn't go, we're not going to go with Three Waters. What they left out was, by the way, your rates are going to increase significantly. They just went, we're not going to work. We're against Three Waters. This is the messaging. The messaging is, guys, I want to pay teachers more. I want to pay nurses more. But for us to do that, you need to pay more tax like they do in Australia. So now society pick. Do you want to keep our teachers, keep our nurses and attract them back from Australia to us and pay more tax? Or do you want to lose our teachers and lose our nurses to Australia where they pay more tax to pay them more? That's the full conversation. And I'm not saying it's going to be a winning formula, but that is actually messaging that this party should pick up on and fucking run with.
Yeah. Look, you sit down with any nurse or teacher and ask if they're paid fairly. Like to a single person, no one's going to say that. And I think everybody knows that. We've just gone through a global pandemic and our nursing staff are burned out, underappreciated and looking to go somewhere else. And our teachers are just going, well, what the hell? They know that they're pushing shit uphill. And then if you look around the world globally, let's talk about the countries that do have the best healthcare, the best education outcomes, the best quality of life, and that sort of thing. Every single one of them is a high tax country.
Yeah.
This race to the bottom for rates and taxes, and people are wondering why the roads have potholes, why we can't build a hospital to the same spec as when it was designed, and all of that sort of stuff. This is why we want the nice things. You have to pay for them.
Yeah. And look, it's this idea that I'm looking for something while I'm talking to you. It's this idea of gimme. So I think I did it with George last year. I'm looking for the graph. If I can find it, I'll put it up again. But when we did a night where we talked about the Australian system, because in Australia they don't pay any tax on the first $10,000 they earn. So we floated that as an idea. And I, as you know, Chewy, love my numbers. I love my numbers, Chewy. I love my numbers. So I went through and did all the numbers. And what it ends up being is about 80, using the Australian numbers, yeah? Because we don't have any other numbers to use. And whilst it's no one's policy, I thought that was a fair place to at least, here we go. I found it. Fuck, I'm amazing. Let me bring it up.
And humble. Humble.
There we go. So I did this last year, yeah? Zoom in, please. Thank you. Oh, it's like Star Wars.
Enhance.
It's warp speed. Ready, warp speed.
Enhance.
So this is using the Australian numbers, right? And at about $80,000, that's the tipping point. So people under $80,000 earn less. People over $80,000, pay less in tax. People over $80,000 pay more. The $100,000 mark means that the person's paying about $800 or more a year. I did this as talkback on Today FM over the holidays. It was interesting actually. And I just said, this was my question. If you're earning $100,000, right, which is currently, this is only PAYE, by the way. So there's no KiwiSaver in this. There's no anything. If you're earning $100,000 right now, you pay just under $24,000 in PAYE. If you're earning $100,000 under this proposed system that I made up, but is based, the rates are based on the Australian system, would you be prepared to pay about $800 more per year, right? Per year, so that everybody under, like every beneficiary, every retired person, every student at university, anyone who earns a low wage would have, an additional $1,470 in their pocket per year. And most people went phone through and on a very sort of appropriate level to a mainstream media radio station said, fuck no. And that's the problem. So these people are all saying we shouldn't be losing our teachers, we shouldn't be losing this. They're all going to Australia. They're also going, what, me pay more? Fuck no. Can't have both ways, guys. Doesn't work.
Because
Sorry.
it's a focus on the message. Like if anybody turns around and goes, do you want to pay more tax? They would go, no. But it's never the rest of it. If you pay more tax, this happens.
Yeah.
Well, it was still a happier, healthier, and more educated country. Do you want
it was still no to the people who phoned me primarily. Although no, to be fair, a percentage of them did say, "Well, my mum's a pensioner, so I'd certainly consider it." But there was no people jumping up and down going, "Absolutely, what a great idea!" It was either no or nah, maybe, but mostly no.
Yeah.
There is one more clip. And I wanted to play this because I think this is a beautiful red herring, and it annoys me when I'm thick as pig shit guy wearing a 1960s tie-dye t-shirt with a beard that's ridiculous can pick this up down in Dunedin, and the about to be fucking prime minister of the country doesn't pick up on it. I mean, if I can find messaging and these guys can't, what hope have they got? Have a listen to this, and then I'll use it's only 40 seconds. Have a listen.
Do you know how much is being spent right now on consultants while you guys make up your mind about whether you actually go through with it or not?
No, of course I don't.
Can I tell you? My head. Can I tell you that the average on consultants apparently for this merger is $6,000 a week, some up to $9,000 a week. When will you decide whether or not you'll drop it? Because we're footing the bill for this in the meantime.
Look, we'll be making haste on all of those issues, and I think New Zealanders can.
What's the time frame?
Within the next few weeks, you're going to see quite a lot of clarity from us around our reprioritisation.
All right, bureaucrat.
So here we go, right? Let me explain this to you one time.
The B word.
Here we go. This is dumb as a church mouse boy in Dunedin can see this. The response to that question, Mr. Soon-to-be Prime Minister, is, how many weeks are those consultants working for? To which he'd say, I don't know. Because yes, $6,000 sounds like a huge amount of money. If they're there for 2 weeks doing a contract, it's nothing like thinking that they're $6,000 a week for the whole year.
Yeah.
Like, I agree, it's a huge amount of money. So if that's a problem, then what we're going to do, the other side is, so if we're going to do something within government that requires more help, if we don't get consultants, it's a huge amount of money, don't get me wrong. If we don't get consultants, that means we need employees. So now we're going to get employees that are on 12-month contracts on 180 grand, or you can have that consultant come in for 4 weeks at 6 grand a week on 24 grand. So there's actually information being left out, and it frustrates me that the Labor government at the moment aren't like, well, let's have a look at what you're saying. $6,000 is a lot of money, but how long are they working for? Like, what's the length of time? Because if they were in there for a month, it's a huge amount of money, $24,000 for a month, but it's much fucking cheaper than if they were employees at $180,000 a year. So sort it out and make sure that we get clear messaging from this government. The Labor government has been shit house at messaging ever since about 12 months ago. They were great with their messaging at the start of COVID. And when we went into that time of being COVID free for 10 months, they were great. Then once Delta turned up, and once the thing happened at Parliament, the protest, they've been terrible at it, and it needs to turn around. And look, I'm not even saying this like, I'm not even going to say if they think they're going to win. I haven't got a clue. This is Nationals to lose at the moment, no question about that. But if they don't go down fucking fighting well, if they just get knocked about and then go out on 26% themselves, it'll be because of shit like this. Pick up your pace, pick up your fucking balls, and get on with it. Male or female, get some bigger balls and actually push back a bit. Push back. Like $6,000 a week, that's a lot. How long were they working for? You've got the numbers in front of you there, Ryan. How long were those consultants? What was the average length of time they were employed for? 4 weeks. Yeah, $36,000 is a lot of money for 4 weeks, but it's a heck of a lot less than $180,000 to employ them for a year.
Do you think, based on what Chris Hipkins said there, that the TVNZ RNZ merger is on the chopping block?
I think that it is on the chopping block, and it will be an absolute travesty for two reasons if it happens. One is I think it's a great idea. But two is it's again just going to give National all the fodder they want to go, yep, see, told you.
They just wasted all that money and all that time and nothing happened.
And we were right.
Yeah.
And you know that next year, if they get in again, they're going to do the wrong things and we're going to be right. So let's not even push that. Just get it. But I actually think the idea of the merger is a good idea overall. Yeah, I think a well-oiled public broadcaster in 10 years from now, looking back on us having a BBC type model, no one's going to be going, oh, it cost an extra $10 million. You know, we're going to be like, great. This is what we need. And especially in this current climate, when you're getting fucking mainstream media outlets looking for clickbaits and actually joining in a little bit at times on perpetrating misinformation around the place for the sake of getting eyes. So I actually think it's more essential than ever before that we have a well-functioned, well-oiled public broadcaster.
Do you know what just popped into my tiny little walnut brain just now?
Wasn't a bullet.
No, you would have noticed that. I'm casting my mind back, and please, you correct me, or someone in the chat correct me if I'm wrong here. But I remember they were campaigning on getting rid of secondary tax at one point. Does that ring any bells with you? I'm sure that was something last election that they were going to get rid of secondary.
When
tax.
You say they, which they? National
Labour.
Or
Labour.
Right.
National never get rid of secondary tax. But yeah, like when you're talking about, you know, hardworking people juggling a couple of jobs or students on a part-time job and that sort of thing, getting rid of secondary tax makes quite a big difference. And I was of the mind that's what they did, that they got rid of it, that was one of their election promises, and it went in the following April. And then I was talking to a friend and he says, oh, no, that hasn't happened. And then I crawled the IRD website and I could see no reference to secondary tax being gone.
This is from 2019. Workers who are paying too much tax because of incorrect secondary tax codes are in line for relief with the passage of legislation through Parliament late last night. The taxation yada 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 bill passed. Its third reading will come into effect on 1st of April. I'm not sure about the summation of that because I've just brought it up. But what point are you getting to? Like, what are you suggesting?
Well, my point is, if you're trying to make tax fairer. For people that are generally trying to juggle a couple of jobs to make ends meet, and I know the argument is that you tax people more on a secondary job because they're hoovering up all the jobs like greedy jobsmen.
Yeah, but hang on. Let's just make sure people are clear. Secondary tax is kind of a thing in name only. I'm going to burp soon. It's coming up. It's kind of a second. Because if you had two $14,000 jobs. Or let's say you had a $5,000, because I wanted to stay under $14,000, right?
Yeah.
If you had a $5,000 part-time job and a $7,000 part-time job, you wouldn't be paying any more than the minimum rate. You might get charged secondary tax, but at the end of the financial year, when they accrue everything you've earned, if you're under the threshold for the secondary tax to kick in, then you get a refund. It's a pain in the ass. But secondary tax is only really if you then continue over that. The reason they have it is because they think if you're working two jobs, you're probably earning about $100,000. But if you work two part-time jobs and you earn $40,000, then you will only pay in total what you'd pay if you had one job earning $40,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it works. Which is why it's kind of a name only.
I was unaware of it, that's how it works. All right, everyone stand down. That's fine. We're not going to the barricade tonight, people. All
right, where we're going to go to is to see a bit of a reaction from Mr. Luxon as to what's been going on with this. This is from stuff.co.nz. It's truncated. It's 3 or 4 clips from a stand-up he did, not routine like Chewy does, but a crowd. He was doing some crowd work with the journalists and saying, "Take my mother, please. My mother's so fat." He was doing your mama jokes. And these are some of the things he had to say. We're going to pause as we go through this a couple of times.
Again, just wanted to congratulate Chris Hipkins on being selected leader of the Labour Party and therefore being anointed as Prime Minister of New Zealand.
First of all, did you notice?
Anointed.
Yes. Now,
anointed.
I know.
That is a weird word to use, and it is very deliberate.
I don't know if it is, because then he talks about Carmel Sepuloni and says...
it's also an opportunity to congratulate Carmel Sepuloni on being...
He's going to say appointed.
But I need to know what she is.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I again just wanted to congratulate Chris Hipkins on being selected leader of the Labour Party.
Oh, good Lord. What's going on here? I've got a gig internet speed and our quality is 480. Anyway, he says that Carmel is appointed. So he says anointed for Chris and appointed. So I'm at the moment going to go with the gracious position.
Minister. I think the real takeaway for me, however, is that there is no change. It's just more of the same. And that's because it is essentially the same team. Chris Hipkins has been part of this government for the last almost 6 years that has failed spectacularly to get anything done. And so the New Zealand people need much more than just a Labour Party leadership change. What they need is a national government that will actually get things done.
Right. So a leadership change is not what they need. We've got to be real careful with these words and be accurate and be fair. It's not just about a leadership change. And the words that he used, let me be very clear, are the reason that Labour is going to continue to fail, right? That's it, is because it's, quote, essentially the same team. Now, I've done a little bit of research.
I bet you have.
Remember, the reason that Labour's not going to succeed is it's essentially the same team. Essentially the same team. So here's the list from National's party at 2020, right? The red ones are people who have retired. Guess what's happening with the other 20?
Still bloody there.
They're still all there. It's sorry, hang on. It's essentially the same team. They're still all there. All of those people are still there. They're still on the front bench. Yes, there's been a little bit of shuffling around. And if we're fair, and I like to be fair, this is the list. This is the new list that no one talked about last week because it was released the same day that Jacinda resigned. Christopher Luxon was in a top 20 MP in 2020, like on the list. And number 7, 8, 9 are new additions, and number 18 and 20. So there's 5 people in the top 20 that weren't in the top 20 last time. Remember, 2 people have left and one's the leader. So that leaves two genuine changes. And remember, Mr. Luxon was critical of Labour, saying they're not going to do any good. They're the same old, because they are, quote, turn page, thumbs, essentially the same team. Now, this team, which is essentially the same team as 2020, got less than 26% of the party vote. So if our criteria for being bad and expecting much of the same is they are essentially the same team, has anyone told Mr. Luxon that you have essentially the same team that got less than 26% of the party vote?
It's the first thing I thought of when he said it. I was like, but it's not like you're the fresh face of National with a whole new and improved lineup. It's
essentially the same lineup. It's essentially the same.
That's what I mean. Is that he just walked into his own bloody trap. But
again, it's not a trap because no one else is fucking talking about it. No Labour MP has used the phrase back towards him. No Chris Hipkins has gone. I appreciate Christopher Luxon's comments about us being essentially the same. It's good to see that 70 to 90% of his team are essentially the same from the 2020 election. I assume that means he also thinks they will essentially do the same thing and get 26% of the vote.
My other favorite part of this is this country needs a national government that's going to get things done, and it's great. It's a nice pithy headline. It's definitely going to feature on the top 5 slogans going into the election. But there's just one little thing, and a lot of people do this when they have a nice pithy slogan. We're going to get stuff done. There's no guarantees that any of the stuff that we are going to do is going to be good. We're just going to do it. You know, it's just soundbite shit. And he had a moment. He had a moment there where he could have been classy, and he missed it.
Let's go back to the sound bites. Here are a few more of them.
It's all too little, too late, isn't it? I mean, it's now, look, it's a government that has actually, by its own admission, now admitting that it has failed to get things done for the New Zealand.
This is the
Where?
problem with the
Where?
problem with Labor. No, but this is the problem with Labor saying that they're going to do some reprioritizing. It feeds into this narrative. And you know,
Yeah.
if I was advising Luxon, I'd say, yeah, push that. They're now saying that they're shit hot. I mean, they're shit house. Because if they're having to reprioritize, obviously, I mean, those were eras. We've been saying they were eras for 12 months, and now they're saying they're eras. That's the line we want to push. It's fair enough. I'm an oppositional party.
New Zealand people. And to come out now, you know, in an election year to say this year we're going to take it really seriously, we're really going to get things done, it's just not credible, it's just not believable, is my view. And so you know, again, Chris Hipkins has been one of the most senior, you know, one of the three most senior people in the Labour Party, alongside Jacinda Ardern, Grant Robertson and himself. You know, they have been the three senior leaders of that party, and at the end of the day, you know, that they have not been able to achieve anything over that last 5.5 years. Look, I think, you know, really, he should be getting rid of Three Waters. You know.
All right, so let's play a game, shall we?
It's just a lie.
So they haven't been able to achieve anything over the past 5.5 years. This is the Labour Party website. Now, you can say that's tainted, whatever you want to do, but this is the policies that have been passed. Remember, the Black Swan series says, to disprove the statement, all swans are white, all you need is one black swan. So Christopher Luxon says they've achieved nothing. Chewy, shut your eyes, put your hands over your eyes, and you're going to say stop. Not yet, because I haven't started yet. And then I'm going to just stop wherever it is, and we're going to have a look to see what they've achieved. I'm going when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. I can't see with the blast shield down.
You're going to say stop, or you just say I'm ready?
Stop.
Jeez, I'm going to go to the fucking bottom. All right, let's go to the top line. Responded to the March 15 attack with a raft of initiatives to provide inclusion and safety for all New Zealanders, ramped up pest control programs to protect farmers and our environment while creating jobs, working with farmers to deliver... Oh, not working with farmers. I thought that Labor hated farmers. Working with farmers to deliver on a world-first agreement to measure price and reduce agricultural emissions, started to work to regulate the residential property market, property management sector to protect both renters and landlords. Right, cover your eyes, please. Cover your eyes. We're going to do it again. Just say stop when you want to stop.
Stop.
Okay, there. All right. So launch the Better Pathways package to drive down youth crime, improve rural broadband connectivity with more than 350 new mobile towers, complete and improved access for 80,000 rural homes. Hang on, that sounds like doing something. Hang on.
And for the rurals.
No, but that sounds like they've achieved something, because there's a number there. There's a number there that says improved access for 80,000 rural homes and business. That sounds like they've achieved something. I'm not entirely sure how that could be. Let's have a look at this. Reinstated the training incentive allowance for higher skilled courses, supporting around 16,000 people to retrain. Now, hang on. That sounds like an achievement, because there's a number attached as well.
Correct.
Oh,
it's also something that National took away.
What about this one? Created more than 9,200 environmental jobs in our regions through our Jobs for Nature. Why don't I just go looking for some numbers? All right, how about this? Increased family support, meaning 346,000 families are better off each week. What's that number? Rolling out more than 3,300 kilometres of road safety upgrades through the Safe Network program. I'm so confused. Launched progressive home ownership scheme supported between 1,500 and 4,000 whānau to step in home ownership. Established a $300 million venture capital fund to back Kiwi innovation. I'm particularly confused by these numbers, because these numbers are easy to measure and they seem like achievements. Stepped up the fight against rheumatic fever, helping 142,000 Kiwis stay warmer and healthier through our Healthy Homes initiative. I'm confused now, True, because they feel like achievements to me, but Mr. Luxon would say to us, they haven't had a single achievement. Maybe you can explain it to me. I'm missing something. I don't know what. Maybe this is the 1950s Labour website. That's probably what it is.
This is where the election cycle is really unfair, because you can get Luxon up there for any commentary and he'll jam in there that Labour hasn't got anything done and National's the party of getting shit done. The only way to counter that is to turn around and go, but we have got stuff done. Here's an expansive list that no one's going to read. You know, so how do you combat that? How do you combat Christopher Luxon going, there's the government's not done anything.
Yeah,
they haven't done anything. You can't possibly find anything. Don't bother looking, because we all know that Labor doesn't do anything, because he'll just keep on banging that drum for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So how is Labor going to? Yeah, exactly.
It's a gish.
How is Labor going to combat that?
Well, I mean,
Grant Robertson standing up in the House which nobody watches, and listing their achievements, you have to put this on a billboard in a way that isn't next to the national board. Labor gets nothing done, and Labor says, oh yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think one of the things is, and this is the problem with what we're doing, is the problem with what we're looking at. Sorry, my 16-year-old just went out to feed the rabbit from her mum's next door, so I just got a little bit. So I apologize about getting a bit distracted there. Forgot what I was going to say. Oh no, I remember, it's back now. The problem with this is we have to expect the media to call bullshit, and the media won't call bullshit because the media wants access. It's another reason we need a well-functioning public service, a public media entity. That's actually the reason, because you know what? Kim Hill would push back. Susie Ferguson would push back. Ryan Bridge pushes back like this to Christopher Luxon.
The wrong sort of pushback.
Sorry. Sorry. That was potentially inappropriate.
Potentially.
Please nobody clip that. I don't care. Oh my God, I'm so glad my 16-year-old didn't walk in the door just while I was doing that, because that would have... But I particularly enjoyed the cupping at the bottom, the cradling. That was the best bit. And I think I gave him a bit too much girth. But let's move on. Kooky Nick, you're a fucking legend. Put that up and let's leave it up while we keep talking.
Bam.
Thank you, Nick. Firstly, thank you for the super chat. Happy take super chats. Love it. One way that you guys can support us. But there you go. Remember to like the video. Helps them algorithms. Do it now. I can see on Facebook we've got 1 like. But like it now, and like it particularly at the spot where I was just doing that, because that can actually drive people to that part of the video as well. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I just thought of something actually. I don't really care because it's not. I know that I was just joking around, but I wasn't questioning anyone's sexuality with that, by the way. Just quietly between me and you. All right, let's move on, because I would leave the super chat there, because we were say thanks to Nick. The other thing about super chats is pretty much, unless they were horrifically racist or whatever, super chats always get used. So if you ever want to make sure your comments get up there, super chat is definitely the way to do it. We're going to move through this now. We're going to go into one other part of the conversation, which is what's happening with Jacinda Ardern at the moment, and the what's happened over the weekend, what has been happening to her, the way that we can actually now see the amount of vitriol and violence and misogyny and sexism that's been used against, because there's been research into this now, and people who are saying, it's all a bit of fun, everyone gets it. Well, there's been research by the Herald did some insight, as did Auckland University. So I'm going to read you some of this article from the Herald. Jacinda Ardern will need special police bodyguard protection well beyond the end of her time as Prime Minister, even as new figures show the extent of the abuse she faced. Security and disinformation experts spoken to by the Herald say there would be cause to maintain protection after Ardern steps down into the future. What other Prime Minister has required this? Like, what other Prime Minister? None is the answer, by the way. It comes as the University of Auckland researchers dive into data showing Ardern was a target of consistent abuse and threats well beyond others. Those researchers pulled posts relating to Ardern and 6 other bureaucrats and politicians from some of the internet's less regulated regions, 4chan, 8chan, Telegram, and Reddit, and found 93% of abuse, angry, or threatening messages were aimed at the Prime Minister. The Herald's own investigation into the online targeting of Ardern has discovered threats of rape and murder, her portrayal as demonic or evil, depictions of her as Adolf Hitler, and other extreme messaging. Those included false claims Ardern had broken international law and would be brought to justice, then executed when found guilty. Goes on, at least 8 people have been charged with threatening to kill the Prime Minister during her term. The Herald is aware of evidence to emerge in other cases showing violent intent towards Ardern, including a video in which her image was repeatedly shot at close range by someone using a silenced rifle with a telescopic sight. Some more. This is Kate Hanna from the Disinformation Project. Hanna said the aftermath of March 15, this is really interesting, saw Ardern wearing a hijab and was then followed by prompt action to ban military-style semi-automatic weapons. That's when things started to significantly shift in how she was described. So that was the moment that things shifted. Intelligence analyst, Dr. Paul Buchanan of 36 Parallel Assessments said the events of March 15 and Ardern's response, quote, galvanized the most retrograde elements of the far right. Then the pandemic hit. This is about being young, female, and successful. It's a whole different level of vitriol. Buchanan said he expected police would extend diplomatic protection service cover for Ardern beyond her time in Parliament, offering an, quote, unprecedented level of protection. Last bit, because there's another expert here, because this is the thing, yeah? This is not us, right? This is not our opinion. This is not just the Herald. These are experts in this field. Global Risk Consulting Director Chris Kumaroa, probably, a former NZ SAS trooper who specializes including counterterrorism, said he expected intelligence gathering related to risks faced by Ardern would continue by the New Zealand Secret Intelligence Service and police. We know women in power are under threat. That threatening rhetoric may subside and reduce as she steps down. Kumaroa said it was possible those who had targeted Ardern would shift to other individuals, such as new Deputy Prime Minister Carmel Sepuloni. He said the targeting of abuse was an issue of importance to New Zealand. What does it say to other young women? For the sake of your own safety, don't put yourself up. Like Kate Hanna, Kumaroa said there was a role for men to speak up against misogynist abuse. The data showed the 93% focus on Ardern was part of research being carried out by the University of Auckland. Chewy, I've done the reading. You can do the response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I saw comments over the weekend in some of the more toilety areas of the internet. People trying to find out where Jacinda's sending Neve to school. You know, because she mentioned in her leaving speech. You know, just insane. And my immediate reaction is to that these people need to go immediately to jail. That's just insane. You don't have to like a politician, but when you start talking lynch mobs and stalking 5-year-old children and that sort of thing, it's just, it infuriates me. The adults are talking. You can bugger off to your fetish, boogaloo nonsense fanfic writing camp and leave the rest of us to it. But yeah, she's going to have a diplomatic protection detail for many, many years to come. And how annoying is that? You're trying to live your life.
We have an experience in this on Thursday night, Chewy. We talked about the resignation of the Prime Minister, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
And we don't ban people typically. In over 200 shows, I think I banned one person who claimed that the Christchurch mosque shooting was a false flag. We just don't play that. You're gone. On Thursday night, we banned 4 people for the kind of rhetoric that is talked about in that article. So yes, ours is anecdotal, but when you say that we ban people once in over 200 episodes versus when the Prime Minister has resigned 4 times in one episode, I just think that's indicative of what this is talking about. This didn't happen. We had the internet, we had social media when John Key left. And you know what? Some of those things John Key suffered. There was pictures of John Key being Hitler and that was real. No one's denying that, but it's the level of vitriol. No, I don't think anyone ever, well, maybe they did, but I can't say, but certainly it's the level and vastness of the violence aimed at this Prime Minister who is female that no other Prime Minister has had before. And typically across the world, if it's a female in leadership, is like a lightning point for, tenfold what any male would get.
Yeah. I've seen comments along the lines of like, oh, John Key got rumors and abuse and that sort of thing. And yes, he did. I remember a friend of mine gleefully reporting some sort of nonsense that the reason that John Key was resigning because his wife had thrown down over an affair. There's no proof for it. You just told me nonsense, and I told him to wind his neck in because it's just stupid. Like, you can go, I don't like this politician, and I'm glad that he's resigning, and that's fine. But you don't need to come up with some nonsense.
Yeah.
But people are using this justification of abuse that say was directed at John Key, going, see, it's the same. It's not the same. The stuff that female MPs of both sides get is an order of magnitude worse than the men get.
Yeah, and it's not just MPs. I mean, when this story started to come up last year, all like councillors and mayors and people around the country, they're all saying the same thing. They're all like, yep, we get it worse than anyone else. This conversation's over when it comes to women getting it worse than men in public service, because it's not just the Prime Minister, it's any woman in New Zealand today, if not the Western world, who is in a position of power within politics, gets it exponentially worse than any man does. So that conversation has sailed. We're not going to go there anymore. But what we are going to do is continually challenge as to why it's happening. And you know what? I think we can put this out there as well. If you're a man, and we don't need to mansplain to women and kind of look after them like they're prissy little things, but you have a role, because it's guys need to step up and go, wrong. This is wrong.
But it's locker room talk.
Wrong.
It's just blokes talking blokey, right?
Yeah, but it's not, is it?
No,
But it's
shit. Like, I have often heard men have those sort of conversations with me, say something grossly distasteful, because I'm in the club, I'm in the man club, and just that awkward moment of like, do you just let that one fall on the floor and not say anything? And I think it's the not saying anything is not enough these days.
I am going to send an email to Chris Hipkins' office. I suspect they won't talk to us. We're probably not safe for content. What is it called? Not safe for work. What is it? What is that thing? Because to be honest, I think we'd be pretty honest with him, and I don't think many people are honest with politicians in this day and age. But we will approach him, and Chewy, just so you know, we probably will approach him for Friday night, even though we don't normally do Friday nights now. But if we get long forms, we will.
Oh yeah,
and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll approach Carmel as well, and see what happens from there. Let me finish with one other thing, and I see you've got some text put up there as well, True. But let me just say this one thing. Thank you again for the super chat tonight. If you do like what we do, the other thing you can do to help us get the word out there is become a patron. Ignore that
banner.
Ignore that 10 p.m. Let me do that. There we go. I'll do that. And if you are a patron, and I see a few people have checked it out, I've got a new podcast called Let's Talk Funny. It's starting next Tuesday. And I've already recorded 3 people. I've had Jeremy Elwood, and you can see Jeremy Elwood's episode right there. I thought I just put it up so people could get a bit of a taster. As
it looks like you're both laughing, like there's some sort of jocularity happening.
I think I'm in the middle of a seizure, and I think he just shat a pant. And I've already recorded Di Henwood today, Paul Ego, Jeremy Elwood. I've got Ursula Carlson tomorrow. I've got Teradar later this week. I've got Michelle Acourt, and then I'm going to keep going. So it's a new weekly podcast. And if you are a patron at the moment, then I've put up one of the episodes there just as a taster to say thanks for it. But we put any of the interviews and stuff that we do, we put them up early. There's one we did with Robert Patman last week. There's one we did with David Slack last week. And there's one about a person who desperately needed to get their ibuprofen before the shop was open. And the way you can do that is just to head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. The other way you can support what we do is to be our advocates. As Kuki said earlier, like what we do, as in ding ding, like tick. And also share what we do. If you get clips that come up tomorrow morning, I imagine there'll be another ranty clip that I'll put out tomorrow. Maybe I can't tomorrow morning because I'm recording Ursula at 10, but we'll figure it out. There'll be another, if there's ever a clip out there, follow me on Twitter, follow Chewy on Twitter. If you see our posts come out, tell people about us and get people along here at 9 o'clock Monday to Thursday to participate. It's great seeing the numbers. It's amazing. And look, if you're, let me say this, if you're a part of this, like right now, there's 50 people watching us. That doesn't feel like a lot of people, but remember, we are 1/70th the size of America. If you're watching this kind of show in America, they sometimes get between 500 and 1,000 live streams. If you looked at that proportionally, 50 people watching is the equivalent of about 3,500 people in America, which would be a huge live stream for an independent news show. So love you to bits. Thank you for being involved, and let's continue to grow. What did Jacinda say? Let's do this. Maybe we shouldn't use her term. Do we need to distance ourselves from that as well?
We don't get stuff done. Labor doesn't get stuff done. Only National can get stuff done. I don't know. I blanked out.
Let's do this. All right. Why don't you give us some of those messages? If you got a message, be quick because we're about to go. Any messages that you want to get on?
Okay, this goes back a little bit because we don't pay any attention. I made more as a classroom teacher in the Middle East than a deputy principal or a principal makes here at home. The salaries are long overdue for a significant raise. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you can't pour money into teaching kids, what are you doing with the money? Put it in the schools. That's what I want. Carl
Sponsored by Pepsi. We're not sponsored by Pepsi. PepsiCo, we would be though.
There's no money there. Carl says, Anointed is supposed to invoke images of shady deals and smoke-filled back rooms. He's such a knob.
Yeah, I guess I was being a bit generous. I mean, just because he said appointed for Carmel Cipollone and he said anointed for him, I'm going to give him the credit this time around. We'll see what he says next time. Fair enough. No. And can I actually say one other thing?
For someone that is a nominal Christian, anointed is a word that has a bit of punch, right? You know,
yeah.
Chosen by God.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a weird phrase from use.
Can I say something as well, which might seem a bit controversial? I've heard conversation over the weekend about, Carmel Cipollone breaking the glass ceiling because of Pacific Island ancestry. I've actually interviewed her husband, who's an artist, on my other podcast. Great, really, really good chat I had with him as well. I kind of feel like you can nudge the glass ceiling right now, but until you get voted in, that glass ceiling is not broken. Like, for example, Jenny Shipley was anointed prime minister because she took over through caucus, but Helen Clark was the first prime minister to be elected. And I think there's a pretty big difference there, being elected into a position versus having your cabinet. I'm not saying this to take anything away from where they're at right now, but I just thought about that during the week. I thought, yeah, okay, it's absolutely true and accurate. Someone of Pacific Island ancestry now being the deputy prime minister, 100% on board, fantastic, good. Will be even better when someone of Pacific Island ancestry gets elected to be deputy prime minister. It's like maybe there's two glass ceilings. One's been done, and now we've got to do the elected one. Like one was done with Jenny Shipley, and then when Helen Clark got elected, the second one got
analogy.
Maybe
it's a good analogy.
Anyway. Anything else?
And where am I going here? Angela here. Department of Treasury data shows Labor-led governments have always reduced debt and GDP ratios while maintaining or increasing public spending at the same time. National have always done the opposite. That would be a great one to dig into. Yeah, I think.
That's true. I mean, look at Michael Cullen. Michael Cullen had surpluses all the way through. John Key came along.
You can go. I had a discussion with someone that was swearing black and blue that Jacinda was the worst period prime minister period ever. Period. And I brought up the fact: how can you say this in a world where Rob Muldoon existed?
Well, used to exist. Doesn't exist now.
Well, he existed.
He existed.
But yeah, I mean, that man cost, there was originally a prototype version of KiwiSaver, which his government scrapped.
Got rid of.
Yeah. And it cost this country billions.
The reason we crashed more than we did in 2008, and also we struggled more in 87, and one of the reasons that Australia was always able to stay ahead of us was they had one. They had a savings scheme and they didn't get rid of it. And so they had trillions or hundreds of billions of dollars to have as a part of, like if you have more equity in your house, you're more valuable, and Australia had that and we didn't because National got rid of the savings fund.
And when they finally got rid of Rob Muldoon, the incoming Labor government found that the country was almost bankrupt, which led to the massive sweeping changes to the country that they had to do to keep the lights on. And we're still dealing with the consequences of that now. Thank you, Rob Muldoon. May you rest in peace.
Please tell me that was an off-the-cuff comment, or is that something you've said before? Because that was brilliant. I love that.
No, I was on a little bit of a vibe there. Okay. Peter King says, I bloody well hope Hipkins watches BHN. Me too, because he would hear the invitation and would feel obligated to come on the show. Carl, loving that line that you said.
What did I say?
I don't know, but it was good.
Good.
You'll likely hear it in the House during question time, and only political tragics like us will see it.
They must be about
yeah,
essentially the same team.
Yeah,
That's so
and I mean,
national.
I guess that's what I'm saying is like, yes, they can counter the argument that National say of like, you don't get stuff done. They can counter it in the House really, really well. You can't put it on a billboard. So, yeah.
That's the Gish Gallop. For people who don't know, and I'm sorry I've said this before, Gish Gallop is very simply when one party in a debate says a sweeping statement, like Labor gets nothing done, and then it takes a couple of fuckwits like us 10 minutes to demonstrate how they've got stuff done. And the headline's gone. It's like that saying, what is it? That lies goes around the world 3 times before truth gets its pants on, something like that. So it's the same sort of thing.
Ava, we all know that, right? I don't go on the dodgy areas of the internet. Okay. And I have seen innumerable death threats and really vile rhetoric out in the open. Yep, absolutely. Facebook comment sections, if they're not moderating, is a zoo. Yeah, exactly right. Lars here, Hipkins' best decision so far has to keep his family away from the media, although I agree it won't be as bad for him as it was for Ardern. Yeah, I don't know if everybody's seen this. He made quite a clear statement that his family was off limits.
Well, I think he had a separation as well, didn't I?
Yeah, that's what he says. I'm going to get ahead of the Wellington rumour mill. Me and my wife separated last year, and they will not be public fodder. I think he went as far as saying, I'm public property, my family is not.
Yeah.
So I think that's well deserved thing to say. Free Soul, who does work in the media and is a woman, so therefore bad. Men threatening to hunt me down, it's pretty bad. Yeah. And I think if you talk to any woman in any sort of, the female reporters, politicians, local body people, if you're a woman with any sort of profile, and then if you mention it, well, then you're just not tough enough. You should go back in the home, and you're a delicate little petal, and nothing will ever bother you, and it'll be fine.
Are we still here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we're still here. The last two. I've skipped a couple.
Okay.
Emma here. It's important for men to stand beside women against hate. Absolutely.
But I would also say, Emma, it's just important for men to stand against hate. I'm actually not disagreeing with what Emma said, but I think sometimes as well, the right thing to do is just the right thing to do, no matter who you're doing it with or for or beside or, anything. So I agree with that, 100% I'm on board with that. But I also think, it sounds a bit weird, but if you don't have a woman to stand beside, or you don't have that, you're not invested in that thing, it's just right for men to stand up against hate. It's right for women to stand up against hate, and it's right for men and women to stand up against it. And it's very appropriate to agree with Emma, because when you stand up for an area that doesn't necessarily impact you as much directly, I mean hatred towards women impacts us all, because we've all got mums or sisters or wives, or we've got women in our lives. It's not appropriate. But if it's not directly aimed at you as a male, you're one step removed. So that's what empathy is, and that's what the idea of standing up for other people, and that's what putting yourself in someone's shoes and walking a mile is so important for. So completely agree, Emma. Also good just to stand up as well against hate, whether you're beside women or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. I've run out of. Well, I could put up more comments, but the chat is actually running faster than I can put them up. So
do you know what happened to me today?
Boxes. What's that? You got thrown out of a Bunnings.
I got called by a scammer. Should I call them? Let's call them, eh?
You're not calling them back, are you?
Yeah.
Let's call them back.
Here we go.
Oh, God.
See what they've got to say.
It'd be a dummy phone number. There's been no one there.
I called them back once already and they picked up.
Oh, okay.
You know what they said?
Credit card details. Ooh.
You know what they said?
What's that?
They said it's the New Zealand tax refund service. And I said, maybe I got my
Oh, no,
number now.
no dice. Very
All right, you ready?
anticlimactic way to end the show.
Everyone get a pen. Maybe we can start spamming this channel. And they said it's the New Zealand Tax Refund Service. And I couldn't understand a very strong accent. And I was like, what are you saying? What was that? It's New Zealand Tax Refund Service. What was it? New Zealand Tax Refund Service. And I said, are you saying New Zealand Tax Refund Service? Yes. Okay. What is your name? And I'm like, this is an unsolicited phone call. I don't give out my details. And they elevated 5%. And I went, I've watched this enough on YouTube to know what's going on here, because they start yelling at you. And I went, so, okay. So you're the New Zealand Tax Refund Service? Yes. I said, what's the name of the New Zealand government tax entity? Like, what's it called? And they went, what? And I said, what's the name of the, like, what do New Zealanders call the government department that looks after tax? Click.
Yeah.
So
I loved when they rang me at work and told me there was a problem with my Spark internet connection. I work for a telco that is not Spark.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, if anyone else wants to have some fun with them, and I'm sure you don't, the number's 04 889 0333 04 889 0333. Fill your
As
boots.
someone that works for a telco, I do not recommend you call that number.
There you go. I called it twice. So it's all good. All right, guys. I think we're done, shall we?
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us.
A very svelte hour 20.
Svelte. Dude, I'm now over 50 kilos. Do you know what I spent the weekend doing? I spent the weekend, because I talked to Paul Ego in the weekend to do the podcast. And then I spent the weekend, because we talked about More FM Auckland, which is where we met. We used to work there together. And we were talking about the old gear. And I realized I've got a whole bunch of More FM Auckland gear. And I went and put it on and I fit it. And then I was like, crumbs, what else do I fit? And I went and tried a whole bunch of other stuff. And I had like a weekend of playing dress ups in the wardrobe with all this gear that used to fit me when I was in my 20s, which now fits me again, because I've crossed over the lost of, I'm like at 51 kilos now on the way down that I've lost. And it's fascinating. I've got a whole new wardrobe and I've spent $0. Oh no, that's not true, because I've spent a lot of money on an app to help me lose this much, but yeah, but I've got a whole new wardrobe. It's cool.
Awesome.
Nice. All right. Anyway. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're done. We're dusted. Remember, patreon.com/Big Hero News if you like what we're doing, but also share our shit. You know, if you want to be our advocates, tell people about us. It was really, really good on Thursday night to get the message from someone who was like, I finally tuned in after hearing from so many people to tune in. If that's you who are telling other people to tune in, then you're doing God's work and you're helping us spread the word. Like we've got in excess of 50 people watching live most nights now. Like come election time, we want to have 250 watching live. We want to sit here with you guys and we want to watch the debates live together.
Yes.
So we want to do that with you, and we want to build as we build that thing. So tell people about us, be our advocates. Let them know where to tune in. Remember, we're here Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. and from time to time, we will also be here Friday in a long form interview, or if there is a particular reason to be here. But in general, Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. live stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, to get on demand. And we will catch you tomorrow, I guess. It's been fun.
Yes. Nice.
All right, team. Everyone be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m.
Not 9.
I said it. I nearly said the other one, but from 9 p.m. All right, team. See you. Bye.
All right. Cheers.